You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 170. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Is there a way to live your best life without constantly feeling overwhelmed and burnt out? Would you like to learn how to improve your work-life balance and avoid teacher burnout with some simple yet effective time management tips? Hello and welcome. We are so happy to have you here with us today. In this episode of the Balanced Educator Podcast, we're interviewing Shawna Lapointe. Shawna is a teacher and an old colleague of both me and Josiane. We each worked with Shawna at different times in our careers. She's also a busy mom of 4 and the owner of Too Busy Livin', a business dedicated to helping busy families master meal planning and meal prep so they can reduce overwhelm and live their best lives. Her current focus is the Easy Cooking for Busy Families membership, a 3-month program that provides weekly meal plans and live meal prep training supplemented with workshops and tools to improve your efficiency and prevent food waste. She also facilitates workshops, sells online courses and planning tools, and develops recipes. So in this episode, Shawna shares concrete strategies that will help you leave work at work and enjoy your time at home to the fullest. Shawna is going to teach you an important question you need to ask yourself in order to maintain work-life balance. I love chatting about this with her. She's going to teach you strategies she uses to complete all her work during contractual hours, so no planning or grading at home in the evenings. She's going to teach you some amazing time management skills that she uses at home to reduce the burden of cooking and cleaning, which frees up more time to enjoy her family. And she's going to teach you meal prep tips that will help you save time and ensure you eat what you love without wasting energy. So by the end of this episode, you'll have simple and powerful strategies that you can start using right away to prevent teacher burnout and improve work-life balance. I had so much fun chatting with Shawna. I really hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Now, before we dive in, if you're a regular listener of the Balanced Educator Podcast, hi, you've probably noticed that our episodes aren't coming at specific times anymore. That's because in this season of our lives, we've decided to just share our episodes as they come up rather than following a schedule. So we have more great episodes in the works. That means be sure to subscribe to the Balanced Educator Podcast on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode when it drops. Now, a word from our sponsor. Do you want to incorporate social-emotional learning and mindfulness into your classroom to support students with mental health, focus, self-regulation, and emotional intelligence? With so much on your plate as a teacher, you probably just don't have time to get trained, develop resources, and teach the lessons yourself. Plus, you need time for self-care too. That's why we developed EduCalm, to support teachers like you. EduCalm is a fully bilingual English and French co-regulation program created by teachers. This program provides everything you'll need to build self-regulation, mindfulness, and social-emotional skills with your students through a 5-minute daily practice. With EduCalm, you don't have to be the expert. Just log in, press play, and participate with your students as you all prepare your minds and bodies for calm and focused teaching and learning together. Go to educalm.com to learn more and start using our free resources. Again, that's educalm.com, spelled EduCalme. Hello there, Shawna. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's been a long time.
Oh, it has. We loved having you on the podcast, like way back in the early days when we were fresh and new to podcasting. And both of us have kind of grown in our journeys of being teachers / entrepreneurs. So we're so excited to have you back to chat about what you are passionate about right now.
I love that. When I was preparing for this, I was just so surprised from the first time we did the podcast to now, how much everything has changed. So I'm excited to share about it.
I love that. So, Shawna, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us just how did life lead you to where you find yourself today and the things that you're passionate about today?
Okay, well, I've been working in the education system for about 20 years, and I've actually done almost every job in a school besides being a janitor. So I was a receptionist and a sub and an EA, and now I'm a classroom teacher, of course. So my current assignment is teaching grade 9, 11, and 12 Français and 9 Sciences Humaines, so in an immersion setting. I'm also a mom of 4, so my kids are ages 6 to 10, so 6, 8, 9, and 10. And my partner is also a teacher, so we very much live on a teacher schedule all the time. And I'm also a small business owner. So the first time you interviewed me, I had just started my business. It was pre-pandemic. So my business is called Too Busy Living, of course, and it really started out as a food blog. In 2016, I was super passionate about cooking, but then it just quickly shifted because I was a stay-at-home mom of 3, and I kind of just felt overwhelmed, and that like parenting and cooking was kind of sucking the passion out of cooking for me. And then it kind of grew into finding solutions to make parenting and those everyday tasks just a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more manageable. Knowing that I was going back to work, I just knew I had to do something. And then I kind of just trial and error started learning strategies for meal prepping and meal planning and ways to just kind of maintain my identity. I felt like, when you become a parent, you kind of lose your identity a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Now that I'm a parent, when people ask me like, so what's new? I can like tell you 1,000 things about my son, where he's at developmentally. What's new with me? I might have showered this week. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, that kind of goes out the window.
Yeah. So when I started my business, I was like really into helping other moms who were where I was at the time. And I'm still very passionate about that. Like I see a new mom, I'm like, I know how to help you. And and I feel like I still like doing that. But I'm also, since the pandemic and since going back to work, I've been very passionate about work-life balance, and just holding boundaries. So that's something that I really like to focus on now. I think like once the pandemic hit, like I said, my partner are both teachers. So we were both at home trying to work. We had 2 girls in kindergarten and grade 2. So we're like trying to run our own Zoom calls, get them on Zoom calls. We had like 4 computers running in the house. And then we had 2 toddlers. So
oh my gosh.
You're a toddler mom, you get it.
Yeah. Oh, how? So, my question is how? How did you stay sane, really?
Well, I actually think like that experience was just a catalyst for realizing what is really important, and realizing like there was just a few aha moments that are like, a teacher's work is never done. It's never done. You're always thinking about something. You're always doing something, planning something. So I really felt I had to like acknowledge that and accept that I need to make a change to make teaching life and parenting life just more sustainable, and just more. I want to say pleasant. I know that's not the right word, but I don't know what.
I know what you mean. It's like for myself as a parent, I kind of have always been very like career driven and goal driven and like very organized and on task and like have my list of things to do and I get it all done. And that's like just been such a big part, I would say, of like my identity before becoming a mom. And that was something that really tied in well with being a teacher. It was like those skills work really well when you're a teacher and constantly having to like function at your highest ability. And then, once I became a mom, a lot of those things, I was like, some of the strategies that work as a teacher are really helpful as a parent. But some of the things were like, I had to let go of this part of my identity that was like wrapped around this always functioning at 100% and having grace for those days that I'm like, you know what? I completed the things that are the most important and I have to let everything else go. And then, yeah, finding that kind of like, how can I be okay with letting go of some things in order to focus on the things or that I truly care about and figure out what are those things that I truly care about, you know? Because you can't do it all.
And, I think that as teachers, we're generally like givers more than takers. And it's hard to kind of just focus on yourself sometimes and pay attention to yourself. And you feel like you're being selfish, but it's really not selfish. Like you are your best person when you are taken care of first. So I think accepting that I get to decide how I spend my time, and that's my time at school. That's my time after school. I get to decide what I do in those hours. Was a real game changer for me, and just making choices that were aligned with what's really important to me, and just acknowledging that it's not selfish to take care of yourself.
And to say no to the things that don't fall within that realm of what's truly important to me. I think for myself as a teacher, in the beginning of my career, I really wanted to like do it all, be all the things for all of my students. And that really quickly led to burnout.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then, you have to like accept the fact that you're like, I can't be everything for everyone. And that's okay. I can be me for my students. And then they're going to have other teachers and other figures in their lives that fill the other voids that they need in their life. I can't do all of the things. That was such a big learning thing for me.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it. I like that. And for me, it was like that mindset shift of like, do I want to just be miserable and still do all those things that I did before I had kids, before the pandemic, or do I want to kind of have a more happy and fulfilled life? And for me, it was like right away, I knew like during the pandemic, we would have our days, our school days, and then the school time would end. We would have dinner. We would do all the kid things. And then the kids would go to bed and we would both work until midnight again because we got nothing done during the day. Yeah. So for me, the absolute first thing I changed was not bringing work home. I just decided everything that I do at school will get done at school on my prep. And I still even go to work an hour ahead of time, but I like to do that. I'm very productive in the morning. So that is something that works for me. And, some people like to take their schoolwork home, and that's great. If you're into that, then that's fine. But I found for myself, it was just taking away from my happiness and just taking away from being present at home with my kids who I didn't see all day because I was at work.
Right. Yeah. So, Kay, I want to dig into this now because that was always hard for me, the leaving work at work or setting boundaries as to like what I'm willing to take home with me. So how did you start shifting from the like, I'm working till midnight to, I'll come an hour early, but I'm not taking any work home? What did you change to be able to do that?
Well, first of all, I started kind of like compartmentalizing my time. So I would just like accept like from 7 to 2:30, that is school time. So whatever I do at school is related to school. So like I'm not it sounds harsh, but I'm not thinking about my kids. I'm thinking about school. I'm very much in school. And then when I get home, it's kids. And then when they go to bed, it's me. So I kind of just started like blocking time.
I love that because I feel like anytime that we're like shifting tasks or shifting mindsets, that's kind of like an energy suck. We're having to like restructure how we think, our speed of doing things, kind of that like cadence of how our work goes. And anytime you're shifting from, okay, this is my work brain to home brain to personal brain, that makes total sense that you would kind of compartmentalize those things and say, okay, when I'm at school, I'm in teacher mode and I focus 100% on teacher me.
Yeah, I think that really worked for me. But the other thing that I did was like thinking about those perpetual tasks, those tasks that are nonstop that keep piling up. So like laundry, cooking, cleaning, lesson planning, marking, those things that are just cycling through your life. They're never stopping. As soon as you finish, there's always something waiting for you. So I found I really like tried to think of ways to simplify those things, because those were the energy sucks. That was the feeling of doom that this is never ending. So I really tried to focus on those specific tasks and how can I simplify those? How can I save time doing those?
I love that because those are such energy drains, because it's constantly like you feel like you never get to pat yourself on the back and be like, I've completed this task. It's like you never get that feeling of, I've done this job and I can move on to the next, because grading and laundry and cleaning the house is just like a perpetual nonstop. And that can feel so unfulfilling or like heavy. So tell me, how did you take these tasks and make them a little bit more easeful or feel better?
Okay, how much time do you have?
Well, how about we focus on, one or two? We can't do all the tasks, but
okay, so I'll talk about home first, and then I'll talk about school, and I'll keep it short. So for home, I really focused on meal planning and meal prepping. And for me, like those things kind of flowed into cooking and cleaning. So if I was planning my meals and I was meal prepping, I was also saving time on cooking and cleaning. So it was kind of like a 4 birds, 1 stone. Unfortunately, the laundry, I don't have I don't have a solution. We do so much laundry, and I mean, when I was a stay-at-home parent, I would just like put load in the morning, and then I would just keep going all day, like a load a day, and that just seemed to work. But now we just like pile all our laundry up until the weekend, and it just gets done by everyone. Kind of helps out with their own laundry, so that's better. But if you're a parent of younger kids, like your time will come.
Yeah. That is one of my mantras or affirmations right now, for those little tasks that really feel like, oh my God, when is this going to be done? Kind of just go like, it's not going to be like this forever. But some things in teaching and home life, it feels like you can't say, well, it's not going to be like this forever, because it will be unless you change your approach, right?
Yeah. So, and for school, like my biggest kind of idea was, don't create more work for yourself. And like, as teachers, we do create all the work for ourselves. You plan the lessons, and then you plan that you need to make X number of cards or visuals or cut out all these things. And so for me, that was just like, when I was planning, I was thinking, okay, is this going to be more work for me, or how can I make it less work for me? So like things I do in my classroom, especially just like the marking, I try not to create marking tasks. And, it's like some things I do have to sit down and mark, or just like give feedback on if it's like a writing task. But other ways that I kind of do that in a classroom is like, I do a lot of forms. Like I get lots, and if it's like things that can be easily answered, then I can just have like a answer key or whatever, and it just gets so I do like practice exercises, things like that. I'm not making how do you say that in English, or cutty shape?
Like good question. How do you, as soon as someone asks me, like, how do you say this in the other language? I'm like, I know that's in my brain somewhere, but for some reason it's so hard to do that. So like the answer key, answer key.
Yeah. So I use a lot of forms, and even just like feedback forms for kids, like just a quick check-in, like, how are you doing? How are you feeling about this concept? Is this working for you? And like kids, I feel like kids are really more, high school kids anyway, are more willing to kind of share more at the keyboard. So they'll be honest. So I think it works. But instead of just like taking work in, I just like walk around the class and like conferencing, peer editing, talking with the kids, getting them to self-assess, doing a lot of like getting the kids to task while like as a class, instead of giving tasks to take back.
Yes.
So
that's something that I shifted in my teaching as well so much, is just like, I hated doing corrections. It felt pointless, because then you'd hand the test back to the student, they look at the mark, and that they don't look at anything else. And I'm like, how is this improving their understanding? Or how are they, because like the second they saw the mark, I mean, not all of them, some of them really wanted to understand, like, how could I have done this better? But most of the time they see the mark and that's it. And I just, it just never sat right with me. So yeah, I corrected next to nothing. My students would correct their own tests. And it was just like, okay, show me your colored like pen. Everyone hold it up so I can check that you have a colored pen. There's nothing else on the desk. And then I would go through the answers to the test with them. And even if it wasn't like, A, B, C, D, like even if it was a multi-step math equation question, I would show them this is exactly how you get this point. This is exactly how you get the next. And they did a great job. It took a little bit of teaching in the beginning to get them to understand the process. But once you do that kind of pre-teaching, I thought it was so much more useful for them because then they truly understood what they did wrong because they were the one assessing it. And then I would just do a quick look over. And honestly, I don't think I ever found, maybe once or twice, there was like a little error in one of the students' ways of correcting. And it's
like,
no
does
big
that
deal.
matter? Does that one little error matter?
No. So yeah, then you're looping in correction time rather on your own, instead of it being on your own time. Now it's during class time, which is something you also have to account for in how you're planning your days.
Well, yeah. And I do like a lot of like front loading too, like in terms of like planning, like I'll plan a whole unit at once and like outsourcing things. Like I'm not standing at the photocopier. I'm sending those copies to get made because there's someone that's doing that.
Yeah.
Like, why would I spend a whole prep making booklets? Like, I'm not doing that.
And do not underestimate the value of asking students to do work for you. There are always going to be kids in the class that love that kind of thing, that are like, yes, I'd love to cut these things out for you, or I would love to organize these things or hand them out. Like some kids just thrive on that. And why not use that to your advantage?
Well, and that applies to everything, right? Like, don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, ask a colleague for help. Ask, this year I've been working with like a grade 9 team and we've been doing a lot of team teaching, which is super fun because I'm like, I don't know that much about this social studies concept. Can you do it? And, he's like, yeah, okay. And can you do this French topic for me? And we just kind of work together and we'll cycle through each other's classes or we'll put our classes together. And it's a lot more fun too.
I love that. Co-teaching can be so fun. And then it's like exciting for the kids too. And memory is so attached to like novel experiences.
Yeah.
So if you can teach something that gives them like a novel experience, like combining classes or having a different teacher, then that can totally help them to like grasp those concepts and remember them as well. So that's a really great idea. That's something I never did, but now I'm like, man, I wish I would have done that. That's a great idea. But even asking colleagues, like, how are you optimizing like this task? We had a colleague in common. I never mentioned that we taught at the same school and in the same classroom, which is so fun. But yeah, we had a colleague that like he would do all of his assessment as like the student would come to him and say, I think I deserve 80%. And then he'd be like, okay, why? And I was so like, teach me more, like tell me more about this. I wanted to learn more because like how are people reducing the amount of work that needs to happen outside of contractual hours? And like sometimes people have great ideas that you can implement in your own classroom.
Yeah. And I actually wanted, when you mentioned the students looking at the test and then just tossing it and they see the mark and they move on. I've actually also been moving away from like ungrading. And just like you said, at the end of the semester, we'll talk about a grade. Like, did you master all the outcomes? And, I always give a rubric with no numbers on it, even if it's something that I'm going to maybe keep for like an actual assessment to put on the report card or something. I don't put any numbers on it for the kids because just like you said, they just go look at the number and they don't read the feedback, but they get upset when they see like the one column highlighted and they're like, well, how come I got a 1 here? It's like, well, read the box. The box says that you need to add more detail to your writing or, so I think it's really effective in, increasing student success. I think they pay more attention to it because they realize that the numbers don't tell them anything. They really don't. They don't give them any information about what they need to improve. So I think using words versus numbers has been super helpful. I know
Totally.
that isn't really related to what we're talking about, but
yeah, we're really going off into like
yeah.
specific teaching strategies when we were going to be talking more about like work-life balance. But, you know,
Yeah.
these are the things that help you have a better work-life balance.
Yeah. And, one thing I do with my students is I'm very upfront with them about my life. And like, I have 4 kids. My kids are in activities just like you are. And like, when we're at school, let's do school. And when I'm at home and you're at home, like, let's do sports and let's do family time. And so I'm really upfront about my students that like, I'm not sitting at home waiting for you to send me your late assignments or checking my team's messages or checking my emails. Like, I'm not. So I just like, I'm very honest with the kids and I say, you know what, if you send me a message, I likely won't look at it in the evening. I will probably look at it at 7:30 when I get to school. And they're cool with it. They're just like, yeah, okay, I get it. And like, nobody sends me messages.
And you know what? That goes right into setting boundaries. And that's being clear first with yourself of like, when are my working hours? And then communicating that to your students so that they know the expectations. I did the exact same thing. You know, I was teaching part-time and then doing EduCalm, this business half-time. And I would tell my students, like, I'm here from this hour to this hour, and I am not going to be communicating with you. And I don't do schoolwork outside of school time. And I also don't expect you to do schoolwork outside of school time because I give you the time in class to do it. Exactly. If you choose to not use that time wisely, well, that's your choice. But I know that I'm giving you enough time in class, and I'm here to support you through it in class. I don't want you to go home and be struggling with it and not have me there to ask and send me a Teams message, which I am not going to answer. I'll answer your questions in class only. And it takes some time to figure out like, what are those boundaries for yourself so that you can then communicate them to your students.
Yeah. And I think it's good modeling too. Like high school kids, they want to do it all. They want to do the sports. They want to see their friends. They want to get good grades. They want to have a job. And it's hard for them to manage all these things because it's new and it's exciting and they want to do it all. So I think it's really good just modeling in general to say like, you can do all the things, but maybe not all at once. You have to pick.
Totally. Actually, one of the courses that I taught was a business course, and I would make my students submit every week their calendar of like, literally they would block out the days. It would be like a week calendar, and they would tell me what they're doing during each hour of every day. And that was an assignment. That was a weekly assignment that they got graded on. And it was about managing time and being honest of, this is when I'm working on this, and this is when I'm hanging out with friends, and this is when I'm working. And then they got to learn that skill of like, I shouldn't be overbooking myself. I can't say that I'm going to do 10 things when I literally only have time for 5. But I could only teach that once I learned that myself.
Yeah. And I think it's really good exercise. I use that exercise too in some of the workshops that I do. But I think it's good just to have a visual on paper of, this is how I actually spend my time. Because I think sometimes we feel like, especially as parents, you're like, you're always getting snacks or you're always cleaning the kitchen, but you're not actually. And just like write it down, look at what you're actually doing, and then kind of see where you can give up more time to dedicate to other things and where you need to take some time back.
Yeah. So what does that kind of exercise look like for you? Like, how do you teach that?
It's actually just exactly what you mentioned. I just give like a grid with 24 squares, and I have like a legend, and I just have colors associated with like home, work, like my time for myself, time for my family, and sleep. And I just have people color in the boxes and just see like the color map. And even for myself, I show them an example of like, when I was a stay-at-home mom, what did my color map look like? And when I was teaching full-time, what did that look like? And what does it look like on the weekend? And so it's a good starting point to kind of say like, oh, I need to take back some time here, or I need to just focus on what's really important to me. Because sometimes your calendar doesn't even reflect what's your values and what's actually important to you.
And that is so important, is that questioning of like, am I spending, because a lot of times when we feel depleted or drained or like we don't have a good work-life balance, it's because we're spending time doing things that don't align with our values. So if we can be clear on, how do I really want to spend my time based on what is important to me, and then start saying no more to the things that don't align with those values and yes to the things that do. And right away there, you have way more energy than you did before because you feel like you're doing things that fill you up rather than drain you.
Yeah. And you have like that feeling of like not the need to do's, but there's like the need to do's that you actually really need to do. And then the feel that you need to do's that are kind of like you have pressure coming from outside sources telling you that this is important, but it's not actually really important to you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's and the should do's. Anytime that you say I should do this, that is a clear indication that you don't actually care about it and you feel like you need to do it based on someone else's values.
Yeah,
so as soon as you say should, just take that off. Let it go. Oh, that's awesome.
I wanted to talk a little bit about like skills that transfer for us as teachers.
Yes, I would love that.
Because I think that plays a huge part in the work-life balance thing.
Yes.
And skills and tasks. There's certain tasks that we do in our job that really are helpful at home too. So those are things like batch planning. So like I said, I always batch my lesson plans, but I also do that at home with like meal planning and meal prep. And then outsourcing, like not being afraid to ask for help. A few years ago, I decided to hire a house cleaner, and that was like a huge game changer for me, because I knew that I wanted to have a clean house, but I knew that it was hard to do, especially when I had young kids at home. Like there was never a good time to do that. And then like even outsourcing things like grocery pickup or grocery delivery, those things suck so much time. Like just driving to the store, picking up your groceries, that is an hour. And like,
totally.
If I could have, everyone always says there's not enough hours in the day, but if I had an hour, I'm taking it back from grocery shopping as much as I love doing that.
I love that. I know every time I go to Costco, it's like I get out and I'm like, oh my God, I was in there for 3 hours. Like, how did that happen? I don't even know. That being said, my son loves grocery shopping, so it's like an activity for us at this point in our lives. But I could definitely see outsourcing that because, it's such a time suck.
Yeah. And then like just another big one is like having a plan B. So, like at school, it's unpredictable. And that is like also a skill, right? Adapting, being flexible, going with the flow. That is something we have to do every day as teachers. And just like give yourself permission to do that at home. And have a plan B, go with the flow. If you're not feeling it, then don't do it.
So it's like have a set plan, but then be ready to be flexible about that plan. Like you go into it knowing what your expectations or your plan is. And when there's something in place, then you can be like, actually, no, this isn't working. I'm going to like put it to a different day, or I'm just going to like place it in a different spot, or just let it go if it feels like it's not worth it or I don't have time for it.
Yeah. And then just like accepting that, like, good enough. It's good enough. Whatever you did is good enough for today. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
That is the hardest thing to do, Shawna.
I know it's hard. And it has taken me a long time to acknowledge that too and accept that. But really, in the end, like no one is giving you a medal for having like home cooked meals on the table every night. No one's giving you a medal for having a super clean house. Like no one is rewarding you for anything. So just reward yourself with that's good enough. And we can move on to the next day. And maybe tomorrow will be better. And that's great.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's something that you just like have to learn with time, but hopefully your mind is set to like, okay, is this something that I can lower my standards for? And I know that sounds like bleak. Yes. No. I need to lower my standards. But like really, like you said, a lot of the times we are, especially as teachers, we're like high functioning people that have really high standards for ourselves and for others. And asking yourself, like, is this high standard serving me or is it like shackling me is so important.
And you can still have high standards without being perfect. So I think you can still maintain like a standard by incorporating some balance. Like it's balance, right? So you want to just accept good enough. And some days are amazing and some days are not. And that's where the balance is.
Yeah, totally. Or like, this is an area in my life that quality is really important to me. And then this is an area of my life where it's less important. And so I can let this thing go because it's not as important to me.
Exactly.
Okay. So tell me more about feeding ourselves, because that is like, I go to you for inspiration and learning, like literally daily. You share the most amazing information on your Instagram. Everyone needs to follow you because you brought me back from like postpartum. I was like, I hated being in the kitchen. And that was so hard for me. Like it hurt my heart because I've always loved cooking. I love being in the kitchen. And I just went through a phase where I was like, I don't have time for this. But the things that you share have allowed me to like get that joy back in the kitchen. So tell me more about your meal planning, meal prep, your genius.
Okay, so like for work specifically, like I always try to have like a great lunch because I feel like a great lunch will get you through a bad day. So I always just try to focus on just like having prepped things that I can throw together a good lunch. So like having rice or quinoa or grains in the freezer and just like chopped veggies that you could throw together in a bowl or in a salad. And then I always have just soups in the freezer because like sometimes you just want a nice warm bowl of soup. So things like that. Make ahead breakfast too. If you're a breakfast person, I'm not really a breakfast person. I know that's bad, but I love make ahead breakfast on the weekend.
Yeah.
So like just having like egg sandwiches or breakfast burritos or like even like chia pudding. Sometimes I'll take a chia pudding in the morning. Just things that are make ahead that you can grab that are nutritious and they fill your belly and they're delicious that make you feel good.
Yes.
But for home, like I still try to keep it simple, but again, that balance, like sometimes we have chicken fingers and fries and sometimes we have a Costco lasagna and that's okay. And I always kind of try to plan with my energy in mind. Like I know that Thursday, Friday, they're not good energy days for me. So that's when I kind of work in those easy meals that I can just throw in the oven. And I know that I'm very committed to doing a meal prep on Sunday. And I only spend an hour doing that. I don't spend all day because then you get to that feeling of, I don't like being here. I don't like doing this, that kind of kitchen burnout feeling. So I only spend an hour in the kitchen on Sundays prepping, but I'll prep for the most important things, like the things that I want to eat and make sure that we have fresh veggies. Because I know that if I don't chop those veggies, they're just going to sit in the fridge and not get eaten when I'm feeling in a slump and I want a snack. Right. So I think just like prioritizing, again, like all these teacher skills coming back into play, prioritizing what is really important. Is it important to me to have veggies? Yes, it is. So I'm going to prep those things first. And just kind of anytime I look at a recipe, I try to think like, how can I make this faster? How can I make it easier? How can I make it quicker? So yeah, just really, there's a whole bunch of strategies at play. But those are kind of the basics.
I love your strategies. I love how you talk about like just, figuring out your values, figuring out your energy levels and planning for that. And meal prepping for 1 hour, that feels like nothing. Like if you're setting yourself up for the week by just like sitting in your kitchen for an hour, throw on a podcast, listen to your music, and then you're set for the week, that removes so much stress. And cleanup, you said that this really helps with like reducing the amount of cleanup that you're always doing. And that's so true. If you're doing a bunch of stuff at once in the kitchen, you're not having to clean up before and after every single time. I love that so much.
Yeah, I think you'd be really surprised to see like how effective 1 hour actually is. And it's not just 1 hour puttering, it's like 1 hour focused attention.
Right.
So I want to make that clear. Like put down your phone and, I always try to do this like right after breakfast, once I've fed my kids, because when I'm standing in the kitchen, my kids feel like it's open invitation to ask for food.
Right.
So, I feel like that for me, that's a really good time to do it is when they've been fed. They're not going to ask me for food and then they go play and I just get in the zone and do it. And it's super effective. And you can almost eliminate most of at least the prep dishes that you would have to do during the week.
Yeah. And then you're not like, if you're doing all of your veggies at once for the week, then you're not having to like wash that knife after each time you cut up a veggie, like you get it all done at once. I love that. So there's one strategy that you've shared that I've like really put into action for myself, and it saves me so much time and energy. And it's like my favorite thing. So you talk about making extra and then freezing some. which is like, I don't know why I didn't think of that sooner, but like my husband and I, before having a kid, our way of doing things was like we'd make one meal in bulk and we would eat that all week. Like we were we didn't need variety in our week. We were like, I'm just happy to know that there's something in the fridge that I can eat for leftovers all week. My son, who's now a toddler, not interested in eating the same meal twice. Like he can love it the first day and then you give it to him the second day. No, thank you. So what I've started doing is that I like make a big batch of whatever it is I'm making, whether that's like muffins or like some sort of snack thing or like a supper thing. I make it and then I freeze it in portions and then I'll like cycle it through the week. So for example, I'll make one type of muffins on Monday. So I'm cooking that once on Monday, but then I save just the muffins we're going to eat for that day. And then I freeze the rest. And then the second day, I'll make muffins again, a different kind. He really likes muffins. He just wants a different kind every day. And then I'll freeze the rest. So after like 3 days of making muffins, that's my muffin week. I make sure I've got all the ingredients I need. 3 days of making muffins. And then I'll usually double each of those recipes. So then now I have a freezer full of muffins that we can cycle through so he doesn't get sick of them for like the next 2 weeks. Yeah. So I've done like 3 days of baking and then we have baking for so long. And whenever I'm like, oh, I don't know what to give him for a snack or I don't know what we're going to eat for breakfast today, I can just grab something from the freezer. So that has been the best strategy for me that you've shared.
Okay, well, let's level up that strategy.
Okay.
Right? So the cycling's great, right? You're doing the work once and then you have meals forever, muffins forever. We'll say.
We're really into muffins in my house.
But think of it also like you only have to do muffins once a week. And then the next week, make a different kind of muffin. And then you like you said, you take the ones you need for the week and then you freeze the rest. And then the following week, you make another batch of muffins. So even if your Sunday meal prep is just making one muffin and one soup, eventually you're going to end up with some stock that you can rotate. And I mean, muffins are good for like 3 to 6 months in the freezer and soups like 6 to 12, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But also look at things that like look for those hidden strategies. So like if you're having rice for dinner, make double and then freeze half the rice. Then you have kind of rice that you can throw into another meal. If like I have a big family obviously, but I never buy like a small package of meat. Like I buy all my meat at Costco and I'm always buying like a massive package. So when you're opening that package, like portion it, marinate it, cut it, cook it. And then freeze it. Then you just have like all those things ready and you just grab. But I will say,
I love that because you're touching the meat anyway. You might as well do something with it. Like if you're having to portion it out to freeze it, you might as well be marinating it. Okay, I'm not doing that yet. And that's going to be the next thing that I start doing. And, you know, there for a while ago, there was like a reel that went around for a long time that was like, name one thing that you learned and then now it's just automatic. I feel like that's so many of the strategies you share. At first, like you share it on your Instagram and I'm like, oh, that's so smart. And like, why didn't I think of that? It's so simple, but so effective. And then it just like becomes part of my regular. And you've saved me countless hours in the kitchen and countless amounts of cleanup, which is like wonderful. Thank you.
Well, yeah. And like in my programs, I run a 3-month membership program. And that is the idea. The idea is to just start small with one strategy and then kind of slowly start to incorporate that. And then when that's a habit, then add more things. There's nothing worse than, and like I have a ton of strategies. You have like my ultimate guide and it's full of things that you can do. But the worst thing, I'm going to just say this, the worst thing you can do is go read it and be like, I'm going to try all these things right now. That's right. Like instant overwhelm. So like just start small, tweak one thing at a time, and then slowly build those habits. And then those will be things that you just do automatically.
Totally. And I just really feel that this whole, like for me, food, like I'm the type of person that gets hangry if I don't have a good meal. And like you said, like having a good lunch is a game changer. When you know that you have a good meal, that's like, it can get you through a tough day. I'm like totally on the same page as that. And I just feel that like so much about teaching and the skills and mindsets of teaching go like transfer so seamlessly to this like mindset and skills with meal planning. It's choosing your values. What do you really care about? Creating boundaries. When am I going to do my meal prep and when am I not? You said you do yours on the weekend after breakfast, like, when that's going to happen. And like learning how to streamline your skills to make it be able to fit within that boundaried time.
Yeah, well, and it's problem solving too, right? Like we do a ton of problem solving in our in our daily work.
Yeah.
But things come up, things happen. You get home and maybe you get locked out of the house, or your kid's bus is late, or one of your kids is having a meltdown and it's slowing you down. And those are all things that you need to problem solve. And just having that whole meal prep, meal planning piece taken care of helps navigate that too, because you can be more flexible because you've already thought of that stuff and it's not consuming.
Totally. Yeah. When you have those like basic, the most basic thing of feeding yourself, which it's so basic, but it's so big, like it can feel like an impossible task to feed yourself and your family 3 meals a day plus snacks. Like it's a lot. So yeah, I just want to personally thank you for all the things that you share because they've been so valuable in my life. And our listeners really need to connect with you. So how can they connect with you after the episode and learn from you?
Okay, well, I have lots of ways that you can connect with me. My Instagram is at too busy living 204. And so IG and Facebook. I run a membership called the Easy Cooking for Busy Families membership. I run it 3 times a year. So it's usually January to March and then April to June. I take a break for summer holidays. And then we start back up like end of August, just so we can get that back to school meal prep in. And then usually it ends in November, December, kind of depends. So it's like a 10-week program, and the focus is really on a lot of the things that we talked about today, but everyone kind of comes in with their own goals. And I have the members fill out a survey before we start, and just telling me like, what does your life look like? What is happening in your family, and why did you want to join this? And we kind of just target individual, like everyone kind of has their own goal. But we work on it together. So we do a weekly Zoom prep call. So we meal prep live together. So I provide a meal plan for anyone who doesn't want to think of the meals. But people usually kind of pick and choose from the meal plans I give them, or they just watch a recording and make the meals the following week, or they just plan their own meals. And we just have like a sense of community, and prepping the meals together just really helps people stay focused on the task. And just have that accountability that every Sunday we're going to meet on Zoom and we're going to be prepping for an hour and it's going to go down. So that's really part of the membership. I do kind of like bonus workshops and bonus videos, and I have a resource library for the members. So really, if you want to get the most out of me, it's the membership. That's where everything is. And then I have my website, toobusyliving.com. There's all my recipes on there. I think there's even our old podcast blog post on there from pre-pandemic. I also do private workshops. If you want to do a private workshop, just reach out to me and we'll figure something out. And I do have some online courses too. And there's links for that on my Instagram page too.
Awesome. And we'll link everything in the show notes. So however you're listening to this, you'll be able to get those links. And follow Shawna at Too Busy Living 204 on Instagram. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your strategies with us. We really appreciate you, Shawna.
Thank you so much for having me. That was so fun.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We appreciate you and the work you're doing in the world. Now, before you put your phone away, could you leave us a review on whichever podcast app you're using? We just love hearing your feedback. It really puts wind in our sails and helps us to improve the show. Podcasts are kind of funny because you can't yet leave comments about specific episodes like you can do on like a social media post, for example. So reviews are really our only way to hear from you. So thank you so much. We can't wait to read your review. We're looking forward to connecting with you again on our next episode.